Like It podcast. Halloween extravaganza number 3. As we continue, what is this? What movie is this? What number movie? I don't even know anymore.
20-something.
My name is Vox.
I'm Natasha.
We've made an ongoing joke consistently throughout our ongoing dive into 31 movies, but this is the first movie we've actually recorded in October.
Yeah. I mean, no, Hocus Pocus was October 1st.
Oh, that was?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll eat my words on that then.
But, I mean, we started off real strong.
That's okay.
Getting them done early, and now...
Here we are.
It's...
Almost at the end of October. No, I'm joking. This is a newer movie, and
It literally came out...
2 days ago. 3 days ago.
2 days ago?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Not that anyone would know, because we did a draft for last year's, and it was probably a boring video to listen to, but we did a lot of conversation on it, which I thought was interesting, because I went back and kind of listened to clips of it. But we didn't do that this year, because we kind of had a set list, but then we didn't. You know, we kept changing it. We've changed it a few times.
Yeah,
but again, not that anyone knows that.
Gotten rid of a lot of movies and replaced them with some, just because in regards to time or in regards to when they come out or just watching them back to back.
Right.
So.
But it doesn't matter. I mean,
yeah.
What's on our list is on our list, and that's what we're obviously posting. But this one, I have a very big feeling that this is not going to be, this is going to turn from a movie review podcast to a Stephen King podcast.
Well, what else have we done that's Stephen King?
No. Just episode.
The episode. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So Mr. Harrigan's Phone released this week.
Yeah, you and I literally, I feel like I just saw the trailer
there was
2 weeks ago.
No advertisement for this. You sent it to me.
Yeah, I was scrolling on TikTok and it came up, and then I sent it to you. And you're like, I haven't even heard of this before.
Yeah, which is pretty interesting.
Apparently it's a short story.
Yeah, and I want to know what it is in, because he's done a few short stories, but he did one a couple of years ago called If It Bleeds, which I haven't read. But it was like in a culmination of a bunch of short stories. So I don't know if it's out of that book or what, because I had never heard of this one.
No, me neither.
As far as the
well, and it's got to be pretty new, so I'm assuming it's from If It Bleeds.
I don't know. I have no clue. But I wouldn't call myself a die-hard Stephen King fan. However, I will say that I am an avid Stephen King reader. I think I've read like 12 of his books now at this point, which is pretty... I mean, I feel like that's more than the average person could say. You know, if you walk up to someone on the street and say, hey, how many Stephen King books have you read? They're probably like, none.
Yeah, I just finished reading It.
Yeah.
And that's 45 hours long. So that...
Because we do a comment for those who are like hours long. Yeah, we listen and
read. Okay, so 1,400 pages if you read. I was reading and listening to it. So it's always interesting because I feel like most of his books take place where his hometown is, which is Maine.
Right. Yeah.
So.
But this movie.
Yes.
It was. Tasha called me out on this early on. Every movie that she suggests me to watch or us to watch, I always find that it's being dunked on by critics. Like every single movie. And it's true. I mean, critics have just been pretty brutal. And not that that matters at all, right? But, like, for our sake, we look at reviews. I look at reviews.
I don't. Honestly, I try, like, for my sake, I try and avoid looking at reviews because I just know if I go into something hearing bad things about it, like, I just feel like it's going to ruin it for me. But if I go into it with my own opinion and not knowing what other people think, I can form my own opinion about it.
See, that doesn't matter to me. I don't think that... having someone else say, oh, this movie sucks, kind of separates my own thinking towards it.
I don't know. I mean, you say, like we were discussing before we started this podcast, you're saying that there's a movie that I'm going to hate. And but that
doesn't mean it alters my...
But that alters mine.
Oh. Well, you can still watch it then. Maybe it'll be tomorrow's episode. Regardless, this movie not doing really well on critic standing.
No.
And I understand why after watching it.
I think it was an easy watch, honestly.
Here's the big thing, and this is why I brought up the fact that this is going to turn into a Stephen King podcast instead of a movie podcast. If you are not familiar with Stephen King, this movie is not for you. And that's just how it is. I am very much so, very familiar with Stephen King.
Yeah.
I've read, all of his pretty much longer books. I feel like besides it with the exception of it, but in 2020 I read The Stand, which is his longest book. It's in the top 50 longest books written in English. I mean, that's a pretty hefty thing to accomplish. And that book sets the tone for the rest of his books. I've read a couple of books before I read The Stand, but after I read The Stand, I was like, I get it now, because they're all written the same pacing.
Yeah.
They have like these quippy conversations, very fast dialogue, and then long, exaggerated point of view shots.
Well, and sometimes I feel like with Stephen King, like it's not necessarily scary.
No, it's always supernatural.
Like that supernatural. I mean, it was scary. Like Pennywise is terrifying.
Sure.
Like, all of that is scary. But this movie, like, if you go into it being like, I want jump scares, I want to get scared, I want gore, I want all this, you're not going to get that.
No, it's very subtle.
Yeah.
On everything.
It's dark, definitely.
And that's another theme with Stephen King. It's always dark. It's always kind of thrilling, a little bit of suspense, and the giant umbrella that it's all under is supernatural. It's always something supernatural with Stephen King. And my first book that I ever read from him was called Mr. Mercedes, and I know you're familiar with this, but for those who aren't, it's actually a detective story. And there is nothing supernatural about that book until, not even kidding you, the last 3 pages. And that's when all of a sudden a supernatural bomb was dropped on us, and then it continues into the trilogy, and then those characters sprawl out into other books. Holly Gibney being in both If It Bleeds and The Outsider, and then now she's getting her own book, or possibly set of books, I'm not sure. But it's always this like strange dark tone suspense, and that kind of, literally bleeds through into this movie, because the movie itself, when you think it's going to be done, it's not.
Yeah.
And it continues.
Well, that's like, I feel like the pace of this movie was very strange.
Yeah. There's go ahead. You mentioned this.
Yeah. He was, 9? He was 9 at one point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it's 5 years later and he's in high school. And then all of a sudden he's
going to college.
He didn't even show him graduating.
Yeah.
He was just going to college.
Yeah.
And, well, let's not forget to mention that the person that plays the main character, Craig, is Jaden.
Don't even ask me.
Jaden Martell.
Okay, he's just the it kid.
He plays Bill Denbrough.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting to me too, because it's hard. It's not hard, but to separate him, especially being so involved in that book for so long. Like, he was riding a bike and I was like, oh, that's Silver.
Oh, yeah.
But he was the same. It was the same actor from when he was 14 to when he was graduating college, or from when he was going to college, which is fine. But I feel like there was no aging of him. They didn't show him wearing different clothes. They didn't change his hairstyle. They didn't indicate that he was aging.
Yeah, a growth in human development. Sure.
Because maybe some people look the same as they do throughout high school, all throughout college, but I just don't see that. Usually in most movies they try and change up their look a little bit to indicate that.
Well, I said the same thing about Mr. Harrigan himself, the character that this obviously the movie's named after. He didn't, through the passage of time from when he was an 8-year-old to a 14-year-old or 15-year-old going to high school, he didn't look any different, and it was supposed to be 5 years.
He did have a scab on his head that I didn't notice when he was 8.
Yeah, sure, maybe just a little bit of a blemish, but other than that, he literally looked exactly the same.
Yeah, but old people usually do.
I don't know, it depends.
When you're obviously the actor was changed from 8 years old to 14.
Sure.
But when you're, especially as a teenage boy, you look completely different as a 14-year-old than an 18-year-old.
Well, I want to mention this too while we're talking about. You still going? Sorry.
Oh, but when you're 80 and then you go to 84, you don't really look too much different.
I've never been 80 or 84, so I'm not sure.
I feel like my grandparents have looked the same since I was probably in my early 20s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Maybe not when I was little, but I feel like my grandparents look the same.
That's a hard point for me to reference, but
yeah.
I wanted to mention, talking about Mr. Harrigan himself, this is the second Donald Sutherland movie on this fucking Halloween extravaganza list. You know what he's from, right?
Wait.
Oh boy.
He is from Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes, your favorite movie, the one that you talked so much about.
Okay, he was the scientist, right?
Main guy.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, the main dude.
That's crazy to see. Like, we watched him in, like, probably one of his first movies.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it was in his first probably 5 or 6 movies. But
that's wild.
Yeah. Good dude. I really like his aesthetic. I mean, he's getting old.
Oh,
but
for sure.
I really like his aesthetic. Looking back, if you haven't listened to our Invasion of the Body Snatchers, that came out, a couple days ago maybe. And then listening to this one, I mean, watching those two, young him versus him now, obviously the characters are much different, but he, as an actor, has always had this, like, I am in control. He has... you can tell that he cares about the lines he's saying. You can tell that he actually gives a shit about how his persona in the character is coming off. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, he was quick, a little bit sarcastic. He had, these fast lines. This one, he was menacing. He's kind of like this creepy old guy who took a 8-year-old boy under his wing just to have books read to him.
Right.
It's like,
so I'm glad that they didn't make it creepy. Because I feel like in so many movies and TV shows nowadays, it's like when there's an 8-year-old boy hanging out with an older man, it's like, what's going on there? And it's like, I'm glad that there wasn't that undertone of that.
Well, and I think it's a period piece too, right? Because this movie mainly takes place in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. So to me, I mean, this is prior to the iPhone age. Like that, we see the iPhone come out and develop and change the course of society in this movie. So I think that that's kind of a portion of it. 2003, no one gave a shit.
Right.
You got a young guy doing yard work, shoveling the snow off your porch and sitting inside talking and drinking tea with you. Great.
Yeah, but even if they have, even nowadays or even a few years ago, if they make a movie that's supposed to be in the past, they still have it be like a...
Yeah, and that's a societal thing though, right? And if we know anything about Stephen King, truly, he is incredibly left-wing. However, he understands time passage, and he understands how to portray the period piece. I mean, look at 1162 or 11/22/63. I mean, that was very much, there was no like undertones of that story. For those who don't know, is a time travel story about someone who's trying to prevent the Kennedy assassination. So when you're reading it in 2020, like we did, it was a little bit of a difficult thing to imagine 2020 aspects put into that story, right?
Yeah.
And he had that. He had the exact tones and dialogue, because they're obviously the accents were different, the way that they spoke were a little bit different, and he points that out in there. If we would have had someone in this movie say like, "Oh, there's a creepy guy living in a mansion preying on a little kid," it would have ruined the aesthetic of what year this took place. So,
right. So yeah, let's actually talk about the movie instead
Never.
of just Stephen King books. As much as I would love to. So this little boy gets this friendship with an older man, reads books to him. They grow a friendship. Eventually he gets older. Both of them get older. And he goes to high school, gets bullied, whatever. And then Mr. Harrigan eventually dies when he's probably halfway through high school, maybe.
Sure.
And he had gotten, they both got iPhones. He got a phone for Mr. Harrigan, and Mr. Harrigan was like totally against it at first. And then I guess he predicted the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Saying that, no one's going to be able to make money because there's no ads on these news articles. And now we're riddled with ads.
Yep.
And you have to pay, honestly, if you want to read like a news article. It's like, you've reached your limit of 2 articles
a month.
Yeah, please subscribe and pay $5 a month, which is, I mean, it's really not that big of a deal, but it's still annoying when you're trying to read an article that pops up on Facebook. And then what else did he say?
No, the connection primarily when we start to talk about predicting the future is when after he passes, or the day before he passes, Craig sends him a text saying, "Thank you for all you've done. I'm gonna miss
our afternoons together."
Yeah, or whatever it may be, because they're talking about going to college. And after the funeral...
No, he texted him after he died.
Oh, that was after he died?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, regardless, after the funeral, a gentleman approaches them and gave them a letter and saying, hey, he gave this to me a couple months ago in the event that he does die. So here you go. And in that letter at the very end, it's, you know, it kind of lays out the next portion of the story, but it just says, like, P.S., I'm going to miss our afternoons, too.
Yeah.
As if he knew that he was going to say that, which is... Again, the supernatural undertones of the character and the movie itself. Could he see the future? You know, was there something going on?
I think so.
Well, we see when Craig starts working for Harrigan that he starts Googling, you know, and doing a little bit of research on this guy, and come to find out he's a billionaire, but everything that he touches dies. Employees were killing themselves, you know, after being let go, or after saying something, speaking out against him. But we never really got a for sure answer on what he did.
No.
Like, we don't know what he did, but he moved to a secluded town in Maine after his company was sold off or whatever it may be. So there's a little bit of an interesting twist there, because the story continues with Craig.
Yeah, he ends up getting bullied, and his dad says, you need to find someone to talk to about this. So, he put Mr. Harrigan's phone in his pocket when he was buried.
Yes.
So he calls Mr. Harrigan and leaves him a voicemail saying this bully beat the shit out of him. And he didn't say he wanted him to die, did he? I don't think so. He just said, you know, I tried to give him haste or whatever.
Yes. The big thing with Harrigan was that if someone wrongs you, you react. And I forget the exact wording, but like you react with haste, which means you don't let it sit. You immediately react. And that was another line that is revealed in the trailer, which gives us even more of a like, oh, this is going to be a good guy versus bad guy story, which it wasn't, spoiler alert. But it alludes to that when Craig asks, like, has anyone ever bullied you? And he was like, of course, my entire life. And he goes, well, how did you deal with it? And he says something
diminish them with haste or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
He says something along the lines of, you know, brutally. He retaliates brutally. So that's how he reacts to it.
So the bully ends up dead. He killed himself.
Supposedly. Yeah,
supposedly. And then Craig feels like it's his fault. He puts away the phone. Never sees it again for a while. Then he goes away to college, which everything just happened so quickly.
Yeah.
I guess it's fine.
This is a long movie, though.
Oh, I didn't think so. It was an hour 47.
I mean,
that's
for
normal.
the amount of time, the amount of things that happen in this movie.
Right.
It was a long movie.
So he goes away to college, and then his favorite which is, I just feel like there wasn't, like, I didn't get to know the character very well. I don't know.
No, there's only two characters that you needed to know in this movie.
And I didn't really get to know. I don't know.
It was Craig and Harrington. That was it.
Yeah,
you didn't need to know anyone else.
He gets a call from his dad when he's away at school saying that his favorite teacher was killed in a drunk driving accident. So he goes and picks up his phone. He goes and finds the phone that he called Mr. Harrigan on because he got a new phone, so he couldn't call Mr. Harrigan. And tells him about the guy that killed her drunk driving and that he wants him dead.
Yep.
And then right after he makes the call, he said he felt really guilty about it. But that guy, I'm not yawning, but that guy ends up killing himself, allegedly, in the showers at the rehab facility that he's in.
Yeah, and there's a lot of little details here. The first suicide of the bully, when he's done beating Craig up, it pans out from a bird's eye view of Craig's body. And Craig's got his arms kind of all like twisted in a different angle, and his head was twisted in a certain way, and his legs were twisted in a certain way because he just got the shit beat out of him, and he's like unconscious on the ground. Well, we do see these, and this is the one thing that I appreciate about this movie, is that we see kind of flashbacks and glimpses of what the victims' bodies looked like, and the bully was supposedly was trying to sneak out of his house and fell off the roof, but he had his body in the exact same way. I don't know if you noticed this.
I did, yeah.
In the exact same way that Craig's body looked after he got beaten up. And then one of the key things in this movie too, where the bullying starts, is the guy wanted him to shine his shoes, and he had is it kiwi shoe shine, something like that. Anyways,
Yeah, kiwi.
he had it all smothered and smeared around his mouth, and like he was it was shoving it down his throat or whatever. And then the second,
Like he ate it.
Yeah, the second one, they found a half of a bar of soap down the guy's throat, and a suicide note, and he was dead in the shower. The soap that was used to kill the victim was the same soap that the teacher used,
Yes.
Booth Bay. And then the note that was left was the line from Mr. Harrigan's favorite song, which happens to be the ringtone for when he gets a call from him. So it was, these like connections, these dots that are being connected, but
Yeah.
it's subtle. I mean, you had to be paying attention in order to understand that Booth Bay was the soap that the teacher used, and it was only mentioned once, and that was it.
Yeah, when he said she smelled good.
Yes.
She was like, you can get it for her, and then she almost said your mom, because his mom died.
Mom.
Which I feel like didn't need to be... I feel like that didn't need to happen.
Well, again, Stephen King...
Yeah. There's just so many things that I feel like were just irrelevant.
Well, Stephen King, this is what your dad always says, so shout out to Jack. He always says that Stephen King never knows how to finish a book.
Yeah.
Right? He can never finish a story. When he writes short stories, he has to finish them, and it forces the hand of the author to leave out information that if it were a full story, he would have been able to elaborate on.
Yeah.
The first half of this movie, actually the better 3/4 of this movie, was about the relationship between Craig and Harrigan.
Which I'm glad that they did that.
Yeah.
Because I felt like watching the trailer, it seemed like...
He was going to die right away.
Yeah, like 10, 15 minutes in, and he would be dead.
Right.
But I feel like it was like at least like an hour or so that he was...
I'm telling you, it was
still
almost
alive.
3/4 of the movie.
Yeah.
The last quarter of the movie, which was only about 40 minutes, that's where all the action happened. And that's
Yeah.
why time moved so fast, because they saved, all of this stuff that was supposed to be the consequence of Harrigan's death till the end, when they probably should have cut down the amount of like time we saw with Craig in Harrigan, because it got almost mundane, because we're like, okay, we know he's going to die, but there's 40 minutes left in this movie. What's going to happen
Right.
now? And I felt a little empty at the end of this. I mean, you literally explained the entire story. If you want some more finite details, go watch the movie.
Yeah. One cool thing about the movie that I really enjoyed, I don't want to forget.
Sure.
So it takes place in Maine. I have family in New England.
Yeah.
And there's a grocery store called Hannaford.
Uh-huh.
And I have never seen it anywhere else but when I go to the East Coast. And Craig had a bag, like a Hannaford grocery bag.
Oh, nice.
And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a couple finite details like that,
Yeah.
too. Kind of like alluding to, just connecting. Again,
Yeah. I know it's little, but I was like,
No, that's
hey,
important.
I was like, hey, Hannaford, because, we've got like Meyer, Kroger, whatever.
Yeah.
But Hannaford is not something that's...
Right. No, and that's...
and it wasn't like Walmart or something.
that's important,
everywhere.
though. Is like you're saying, is like we go to, if we go to Florida, what's the big, place in Florida that we always see?
Publix.
Exactly. So we know we're in Florida if we see Publix. Not necessarily. I'm sure there's Publix in other states, too. But my point being is that period pieces and locations, very important to have these finite details on, because it makes you feel alluded. Same thing goes with the rocks that he was talking about, where the pine trees grow out of the cracks of the rocks. I've never seen that anywhere else
No.
besides the East Coast. At least the pine trees. I mean, living in Michigan, you go up north, you can see a bunch of different trees growing out of rocks, but never pine trees.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a very solid, for me, connection to that. But it felt a little empty. I mean, we'll do this. Here at Pick It and Flick It, we rate movies two different ways. Giving it a pick, meaning that it is worth watching, or giving it a flick, meaning it's probably not the movie you should be picking for your Saturday night with your loved one, because you can only watch one movie before he falls asleep on the couch. And then also 1 out of 10, just to give it an extra boost and figure out where we sit with it. Now we can continue on how we're going to talk about the rest of this rating here. Empty. I felt empty. I wanted a little bit more. Very quick. Again, the last 40 minutes just flew by. It was like, shit. We're trying to
I wanted
figure out...
more. I wanted more killings.
Me too. Me too. I thought, and that's where I thought we were going to go, which is why I kind of said, hey, we should do this one. It's kind of it's Stephen King and it's October.
Yeah.
Let's add it to the Halloween extravaganza. But
Well,
I don't know.
I wanted him to be the bad guy, and I wanted it
Harrington?
to, yeah.
Or
Harrigan.
Harrigan? Jesus.
Like, I wanted it to be like he gets mad at like someone and he calls Mr. Harrigan, and then it's like one
I
of
did
his
too.
close friends or something, and then he dies, and then he's like, oh fuck, like this is not right. But then he's like losing his mind over some random guy that was drunk driving and killed his teacher.
Yeah.
Like that didn't match up for me, because I don't see why he would be so upset about some piece of shit college kid
Yeah.
with 4 DUIs killing himself.
And I don't want to keep like alluding and going back to the like books thing, but seriously, this is how you find out why Stephen King makes the decisions that he does. He's very politically driven. There was a message in that. It was subliminal, but there was a message that the white guy who's the drunk driver who has 4 DUIs and a suspended license gets off by going to a country club instead of a rehab center, and there you go. He gets off with another slap on the wrist, and of course he kills a black family, and there's the messages there. That's why there was a little bit of, for us, a little bit of we want vengeance,
Mm-hmm.
Craig has been portrayed since the beginning as a kind-hearted, kind of open, guilty conscience character. So of course he felt guilty when he made the call on it. The whole thing that we're saying to that event is, you're the one who made the decision.
Right.
You're the one who wanted him dead. Why do you all of a sudden feel guilty about it? Because it's a loss of a human life? Well, you just,
Right. Like, I would have preferred it more if, like, he made that call and then he was, like, fine with it.
Right. So.
And then there was another killing, and that's when he was, like, guilty,
Right, because he gets
I don't know.
power
Like,
hungry. Yeah.
one call that he made, because the first one, he didn't ask him to kill him. He just said, like, this kid beat the shit out of me.
Right.
So it didn't, like, him feeling guilty, I guess because he knew what he was doing that time. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying. It's like we get these characters that are brought to us. We enjoy both of these characters. One gets killed. We feel bad. We want vengeance for that character. While the other one that we like as well has the guilty conscience of it. So that's my complaint too, is we have too much of this, like, all of a sudden political tone, which I don't know if you got it from that, but I did, where it was very like, oh, we're in a court case. He's going to pay for it. No, he doesn't. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it disconnects from the story.
Yeah.
But then we don't get the resolution that we want because of the point that he's pointing out, like, this huge thing that happens, and we don't get any resolution. So I just felt empty.
Yeah.
I just felt like it wasn't as satisfying to watch as I was hoping it was going to be.
Yeah.
But as far as like the pacing, and that's some of the reviews that I saw, is like they were like, this is an empty, boring, drawn out story that has no satisfaction at the end of it. I didn't mind it. I didn't mind the character development between the two that we see the whole time.
Yeah.
But then again, we're used to that. You got 10,000 characters in one book. You gotta find some way to connect to them all.
Yeah, and one of the producers on this was Ryan Murphy, who did American Horror Story and the new Dahmer show.
Oh.
Yeah, and Glee.
How
could you forget Glee?
Well, the director did, what's that football movie with the big football guy?
Blindside?
Yep, that one. And then he also did a couple of the... God, now I'm just going to look him up. Hold on 1 second. Oh, he did The Founder, which was...
Oh, I really liked that one.
Yeah, which was great. The Rookie...
Well, I think this was a Blumhouse film, wasn't it?
No.
Are you sure?
No.
You're not sure?
No, I'm not sure, but I don't know if it's a Blumhouse film or not. Regardless, here we go.
It is a Blumhouse.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Which is also surprising because Blumhouse is usually way more scary.
Yeah.
Or
and
at
they
least
do, like, schlocky.
Try to be scary.
There wasn't any inverted crosses or loud noises or anything in this movie.
No jump scares.
Jeez. Wow, half hour in. Didn't mean for it to be this long. I was thinking this was going to be like a 15-minute episode, but here we are.
Yeah. All right.
Don't get me going on Stephen King. I'll talk forever. Pick or flick?
No, you.
Me? Flick.
Yeah. I'm on the edge. If you like Stephen King...
That's what it is.
Like, watch it.
But for the masses, I wouldn't suggest this.
Yeah. Well, it seems like a lot besides The Stand, like, and I feel like a lot of his adaptations are not great.
Give a shout out to Luke real quick. He did last year in December, I believe, was his last video for his season 4. And I don't know if I can't remember the score. I think he gave it a decent score, but I would argue, and I haven't read it, but I would argue that that's still not even that good of a movie.
See, now that I've read the book, I want to rewatch the movies.
Sure.
And you haven't even seen the second one.
No, I haven't, because I didn't think the first one was even that good.
Oh, I liked it.
But maybe we'll do a review on that.
Yeah. We watched because we tried to watch 11/22/63. We never even finished. We were one or two episodes left, and we
couldn't do it. It was so bad.
But and then there's
The
Mr.
Outsider.
Mercedes.
Oh yeah.
The Outsider. Like, they just always fall short because you cannot put Stephen King's imagination.
The books are better than the movies.
But you can't, like, you just can't put Stephen King's imagination
right.
into a movie or a show.
And I never thought I'd be that guy. I used to make fun of people that said that.
Yeah.
But I mean, majority of the time, the books are way better than the movie or show, and that's just how it is. 1 out of 10.
6.
Okay, so you're rating it a little bit of higher, but you don't think it's necessarily worth watching.
No.
Which is why we have 2.
I'm not upset that we watched it.
No, me either.
But I wouldn't say we watched Mr. Harrigan's phone. I keep wanting to say Harrington. And then I'm like, wait.
Yeah, no.
Like, I loved it. You should totally
you
watch
gotta
it.
No, I'm gonna give it a 5.
Okay.
So, middle of the road. This is not the worst movie ever, but it's not like not the golden crown wearer of this list for sure.
Right.
So, thank you so much for listening. If you made it a half hour in, we started releasing these. This is the 9th of October. So we're 9 days in. No one has watched an episode all the way through, including myself. And Luke has been bullying us on our awkward conversation having, because there's some like silence periods where he's like, I can just imagine you two staring at each other while there's dead silence, which may happen, but I'm usually looking at the screen more than anything else.
Yeah.
I'm making
Well,
sure
and
that it's going.
he usually fills the silence because he's just
he
his brain is just always going.
Yeah. Well, he'll never hear this because he never makes it to the end, so we can talk a bunch of shit about him and we don't have to worry about it because he'll never make it 35 minutes into this. But anyways, if you've been following along, thank you so much. If you haven't and you're all of a sudden watching this for some reason because this movie came out 3 weeks ago, thanks for getting through it all. We've been doing one movie for every single day in October. We're almost done. Well, there's only 5 or 6 left. How many do we have left?
6?
Whatever. We always get our numbers wrong, and that's where it's at. But subscribe. I'm making I'm making as much silence as I can. No. Subscribe, click the bell, do whatever. Don't care. Give me a suggestion. There was a comment on one of them that they said that we should be watching something, but I don't think we'll have time to get it onto this list. They're like foreign films anyway, so it would probably want to blow my brains out. Okay. But here we go. A couple more days. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Bye.